Warning.
Watch very closely now. 3, 2, 1. Bzow! Check that out.
The following podcast features terrible jokes.
You know you can use Hot Wheels cars when you need to make a saving throw in D&D? Every car is die-cast.
Usually about board games.
We want the fun. Gotta have that fun.
Must insist that no one attempt to recreate any joke performed on this podcast.
We had less technical issues than $1 Million Company.
All right!
This is Boards and Swords.
Welcome to Boards and Swords. I'm your host, Chris Renshaw. This is a podcast featuring bad jokes, good folks, and some tabletop gaming. And of course, I am here with a gaggle of people. First up, down in the bottom, is my co-host, Mr. Philip Herbig. How's it going?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this glorious Monday night.
It's been a while, but I have
Been
my voice back. And then up in the top corner here, we have Mr. Jason Craze from Monument Hobbies.
Hi, everybody.
So Monument Hobbies, what is that? Why would people recognize that name?
No clue. We make cool stuff. Maybe they like cool things, so they've tried some cool things. We make hobby paints and brushes and all the great things that you use to make your tabletop experiences better. There.
Yeah,
that's my marketing. My marketing for the day is done.
That you shouldn't eat. Don't eat the paint.
Oh yeah. We need to have a talk about that, people.
That's the biggest thing I see on because I get a bunch of Monument Hobbies stuff ever since Nova. Now it's all I can see on my because of course my phone knows I was talking to people there, so now it's like all I see on my Facebook feed is Monument, and it's always like, don't eat the paint. And as someone that I was for the longest time, I was like, are people really doing this? Like, I didn't know that was a concern.
Yeah, it's funny that whole thing was just us on a whim. We were like, I was like, I want to do an ad that says "Don't eat the paint," and everybody was like, everybody at the table was like, no, and it wasn't like no, and they focused on telling me why. They were just like no and kept on talking, and so as soon as the meeting was done, I went in my office and made an ad that said "Don't eat the paint" and sent it to the marketing team and didn't tell anybody, and now it's one of our biggest performing ads of all time. It generates so much interaction that's so funny. We have so many people that are like, okay, tell us about the lawsuit. Like, there was no lawsuit. And they're like, you're lying. I'm like, no, I swear to God, it's just something, just having fun with those horrible paint licking people, the brush lickers, and it's funny.
Yeah, I'd seen it before, but I had put it out of my mind until I was asking I asked somebody else, I was like, do people really eat the paint? And they were like, no, you're talking about like when you dip and you lick the tip of the brush and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't do that.
It takes all types, this hobby.
All right, well, we're going to get to talking more about Monument Hobbies, and their Pro Acryl is the name of the paint line. Or do you say Pro Acryl?
It's Pro Acryl.
Okay.
It's whatever you want to call it. But it's
I know it's acrylic, but for some reason it always just looks like acryl to me.
Whatever you want to call it, but for the love of God, do not eat it.
Yeah. Call it whatever you want, just don't eat it.
Yeah. So let's get into some news.
News.
Did you sing along with it? I heard an echo.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe I double clicked.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's annoying if the soundboard does that.
It was who knows. All right. Why do car thieves prefer stick shifts? So they can't get charged with Grand Theft Auto.
Soundboard is the best.
So this isn't necessarily a news story, but there's been a lot of mixing with board games and video games recently, and I know there was a lot of buzz talking about GTA 6, and there was a big trailer and all this stuff, and the internet's going crazy. And so I saw this article on Dicebreaker that was 6 board games like Grand Theft Auto to play while you wait for GTA 6, and I was like, that sounds like a great thing to talk about. We definitely know a lot of people that listen to this also play some video games. So let's just kind of quickly scrolling through here. First of all, we
Okay,
have
that last one needs to go away. But yeah, we can start at number 1.
The Godfather, Corleone's Empire. Philip, you have this game, don't you?
Do I have this game?
Did you? Well, unless you got rid of it. This was one of the games that we got when we went to the CMON Expo.
Oh, okay. Image credit Simon. Gotcha. It is a distinct possibility that it's in a box in my storage unit.
But
Yes.
from designer Eric Lang, The Godfather's far better than you might expect for a movie board game. It's arguably an overlooked due to being a movie tie-in, but it's a fantastic board game in its own right with veteran designer Eric Lang of Blood Range, Rising Sun, and Cthulhu Death May Die. As mafia families wrestling over New York City, you must send your gangsters around the city streets to shake down individual businesses and exert control. I don't know if this. I mean, I get it's like a crime thing, but that's not it's not exactly the theme of GTA. But I guess it is kind of in that organized crime route.
It could be, yeah.
Next, they have Bad Company. So board game Bad. I've not even heard of this one.
I've heard of the video game Bad Company,
I've heard,
and it's completely different.
Are you talking about Battlefield?
Genre. No, there's one called Bad Company as well.
Oh, okay. I just think of the song. It's all about building up your own criminal organization. Gradually, so I get this seems a little bit more up that alley about recruiting members to your gang and gradually upgrading them and taking on heists and dodging the police. Oh, and apparently it's got that tongue-in-cheek kind of humor. Escape Plan is number 3. I believe this is I want to say it's a Vidal Lacerda game, so it's like a really in-depth Euro. Like,
okay,
you really like your crunchy games. Those are usually like it takes an hour and a half just to learn how to play kind of games. If that's the game I'm thinking of. Then we got Sons of Anarchy, Men of Mayhem. If you like the show, Getaway Driver. Again, another one I haven't heard of, but I guess this is more of the car chase scenes. Oh, I forgot.
but that picture reminds me of the playmat carpet we all had as kids.
Yes. There's a YouTuber I have that used to have that in his background, and then he had a custom one made that had his name on it, like the Hollywood sign.
Nice.
I was like, that's great, because I totally remember that carpet. You disagree with the Western Legends rounding it out at number 6?
The last one. That one can go away. Denied. Veto.
So there you go. If you're interested at all in games like GTA, then that link is in the is going to be in the show notes.
There are no cars. At least put Thunder Road up there.
Yeah. So the next story I didn't write a joke for this because I never want to make light of layoffs.
100%.
This was just kind of a story everybody was talking about. It got brought up in our Discord, so I felt like I had to kind of talk about it. Ticket to Ride, an exploding kittens maker to take part in owner's restructuring that's already cut 900 jobs. People, there are job cuts all the time, but I feel like this is the worst time of the year to be doing stuff like this. Like, literally. Like, oh, hey, Christmas is around the corner. You don't have a job. So, Embracer Group did blah, blah, blah. Wide-scale restructuring plan meant to chip away at a reported 1.4 million debt mounted, and Asmodee was part of that. What did I say, million?
You said million. Yeah.
Okay, billion, debt mountain.
Billion.
A little bit more than million.
Get your Dr. Evil Pinky out there.
Billion dollars. But Asmodee has already laid off a reported 904 people over the last 3 months. And that, so a part of a restructuring program. Further restructuring closures, buyouts, are in process, and that will lead to further headcount reduction, referring to the whole of Embracer Group. Having to say goodbye to our colleagues is an unfortunate consequence that the program will do utmost to carry this with respect, integrity, and compassion. Yeah, It's one of those, like, first of all, it was like, didn't you acquire that 1.4 million or billion debt buying up like every company under the sun? And also, there's like, I've been seeing it all around, but like there's a really big trend of like companies reporting like record profits and then laying off like hundreds of people.
Uh-huh.
Like if am I the only one that's seeing, like, there's a whole bunch of other things, because like they talk about it later in this article, talking that, you know, they've had like killer sales.
Yeah.
And especially because, like, even in the gaming section, funny enough, that Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings set, Asmodee had got a big, huge cut of that pie because they own the rights to Lord of the Rings now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Which is always a weird thing to see. It was like, oh, Magic's biggest, Asmodee, one of Asmodee's biggest money items was Magic the Gathering. So, and then they've got their Star Wars Unlimited trading card game coming up down the line. So all these huge things that they've been dealing with, but like, oh, by the way, we want to tell you about this, but just ignore all these people that now are jobless. So, yeah. Anyways, all right, moving on to something a little bit more humorous. So, when a golf outing is just okay, do they call it a party?
Is this really what I'm in for tonight?
I mean, there's only two more. So, a couple of Kickstarters on here just because they were in the feed, and some of them are closing in the next week or so. But Party Panda Pirates, it's another one of those, like, the name was just like I had to talk about this. It's on Kickstarter. It's already funded, well funded. This was, you know, even as of like back at the beginning of the month.
Yeah.
Inspired by the spirit of Mario Party, this game has already captured the hearts of backers, surpassing its initial goal. Let's see, what does it say here? It invites players to join a crew of an eye-masked pirate pandas on a journey across the seas. The game's centerpiece is a giant turtle boat. I'm always down for riding on turtles. From which players slide their panda pirate meeple onto islands in the avian. Okay, really, I don't need to be the alliteration here. I already have enough trouble reading. To collect coins. Gameplay includes a variety of mini-games ranging from dexterity-based challenges to memory, luck, and area movement tasks. Players can compete in free-for-all challenges, team up, or face off in 1v mini-games. So yeah, that is very much a like Mario Party thing, where it was like, I was like, oh, one versus or team battle or whatever it was whenever somebody hit a mini game. Before each game, you predict who will win or lose, with correct guesses earning them coins. It doesn't say. I gotta actually go to the have to go to the Kickstarter to find out how much it costs. But that is the art looks adorable. Oh, there's minis. Those minis look cool.
Oh, that is neat. Yep, little cartoony character ways.
Oh, in 5 days, they went from 23,000 and change to 85,000.
It's because the article. That's what that media does for you. Yeah, so now at $85,000, and it's only $29. May have to back this. That seems like a good I'm bored at game night kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of like the was it Dungeon Twist? No. I've already lost track. Dungeon Fighter. The dice under the legs and stuff.
Aha! Yes, they do.
What?
They've got a couple of trash pandas in there.
Nice. Of course. I think I saw somebody else talking about this where they talk like the meeples are very similar to like the root meeples, and that's funny. I just noticed the mat itself is a panda. Although it looks kind of like a Mickey Mouse, but
is it?
Oh
yeah,
the
look at
ears
it.
are smaller.
Big ears, yeah.
So.
And a pirate hat at the top of the game board.
There. Yeah, that's right. And the scoreboard is a pirate hat. I see that. So yeah.
Okay, we need to find a Warcraft Pandaren mini and just use that.
Well, we can just go 3D print one. That's the thing about That's the thing about video games and 3D printers is like the 3D models are already on your computer.
Well, now Blizzard's got that phone game, and they're actually selling or doing the STLs on their site for the miniatures.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Did not know that. I knew about the mini game. I did not know about the STLs.
Yep. Yeah, you can go get the miniatures or all the STLs to print on your own for all the characters in the game.
Well, there you go, Philip. Go get you a Chim.
I'm not buying a 3D printer.
3D printer.
Well, no, you just gotta buy the file. I know enough people with 3D.
I'll buy the file
and just send
I'll
it to
buy
Chris.
the filament and some booze and give it to
All right. Moving on. When a wargamer keeps bringing up awkward conversations, what you say he has no tactics? The art kind of, although the name's throwing me off because I keep wanting to say Gundak, but it's Goodnak.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, like it looks like it's looks like it would be like I keep wanting to switch that N and D around.
I do too, because
Yeah, me too.
But it's a new tactical card game, having already surpassed its goals, set in a vibrant yet dying fantasy world. This is supposed to be like an expandable card game, kind of not like Magic the Gathering. Think more Netrunner style or Ashes.
Okay.
Set in a vibrant yet dying fantasy world. I got to think about it every time. Goodnak presents a unique backdrop where the sun is dwindling, heading to widespread strife among various factions. Players enter this world facing a looming doomsday, with each faction fighting to stay fed and warm in the lowering temperatures. So, the core set introduces player to 4 factions. Each faction has its own unique characteristics and strategies. And like I said, it's got expansions on there. Symmetrical deck building, ensuring each player has an equal number of tactics and fighters. Unlike some card games where only a fraction of the deck is utilized, Goodnak allows players to use every card in their deck in every game. It's played on a 3x3 grid for 2 players or a 5x5 grid for 4 players, where you build their deck of heroes and tactics to siege your opponent's stronghold while defending their own. This reminds me, I have no idea if this is even remotely similar, but there was a Star Wars LCG that Fantasy Flight did, and I loved the deck building in that because it was like you chose like 5 characters, and each of those 5 characters came with like a stack of cards. So like deck building was only like you chose like 5 or 6 things, and then all the cards that went with those characters, because I suck at deck building. So it was like, let's make this simple so we only have to choose like 5 or 6 cards, and that's your deck. And then you just like, oh, if you choose this card, you get this stack of cards, and if you choose this card, add in this stack alongside each other. So, speaking of collectible card games, if more like when Magic does a crossover with Toyota, I wrote this and then I read it aloud later, and I realized how terrible it sounded, so I'm gonna apologize in advance. But when Magic does a crossover with Toyota, will it be called a Rav Fornica? Okay, so last time we talked about there was the murder mystery that Magic was doing. A murder mystery Magic set is like the next big set coming in like January. And I saw the headline for this that was just, MTG's Cluedo inspired crossover lets you win. And I was like, oh, okay, they're just coming out with a Magic version of Clue. Remember, over here, Cluedo is marketed as Clue. Like everywhere else in the world, it's called Cluedo. I don't know why. So I was like, okay, they're just coming. Like Hasbro comes out with like 1 billion of these, where it's like there's World of Warcraft Monopoly and like, all these different things. But then I scrolled and read down further. So it's a version of Clue that you play only with Magic cards. Like this isn't this isn't your standard Clue game with just a Magic theme pasted on top. This is a completely new revisioning kind of, to where they've made Magic cards in the theme of Clue, and it's kind of like you take 2 of these packs, shuffle them together, and that's your deck, and then you play the version. So yeah, the Ravnica Cluedo edition box will contain 8 booster packs, similar to Jumpstart. Jumpstart was a set, like I said, where you grab 2 packs, shuffle them together, and that was your deck to play. Players will use these cards to build a deck, and Wizards of the Coast suggested that the rules and mechanics will allow players to ask those pivotal who, what, and where questions in order to gather evidence and eventually point to the perpetrator. So it's going to be very similar to Commander, sort of, but it's going to give you legendary creatures that you could then use in Commander. I was trying to remember. Yeah, like here's some of the cards. Like you got the Dining Room as one of the lands.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like the Lead Pipe. I was trying to see. Yeah, like Senator Peacock instead of Miss Peacock. Here, the legendary creature are clues in addition to other types. Let's see, what was the other one? The Steam Vents. That's funny. Oh, yeah. So that was the other thing is to make Magic players buy this, they included rare lands that have been out of print for a while.
Yeah.
That's where the Steam Vents card comes in. But yeah, like there's, what was it? There was the one talking about Mr. Bodie. Or Body, sorry, Mr. Body. Yeah, Guild Mage Body, because that was like Mr. Body's the person that dies in Clue. And I was just like, that is such a cool idea. Like, you know, Hasbro does some weird things with Magic, but that is such a cool idea. Like, I'm buying this. You know, like, if nothing else, it'll be just a fun thing to talk about on the show or something. Philip, you down to play some Magic Clue?
Well, this is now explains a lot of so every once in a while I'll see a video on TikTok of like piss off your friend card combinations for Magic, and a couple of them have had the wording on there like tap create a clue token. I'm like, what the hell are y'all talking about with that?
It's a new type of
And it's from
token.
this game.
It's not just from here. Like it's a common Commander thing. Like it's just a token that does different that has things. Because I've got some of those Doctor Who Commander decks, and they had clue tokens in there as well.
Okay, I do want the shock lands to be battery powered, and they actually zap you.
And
That'd
they
be great.
actually shock you.
Real pain
Yep.
in your pain land.
A little.
Uh-huh.
Just put a little chip in there that's got like a little. It's got like two little
Yeah, just
diodes.
2 little wires.
Yeah.
Just 2.
All
Just
right.
enough.
So
Just
that
enough to aggravate you.
and there's your news. So before I turn it over to Philip, I just want to say that if you want to help come up with different news stories, then you need to check out the Discord by going over to boardsandswords.com/Discord. And a lot of times the stories that I'll put, I will have gotten, you know, if I see something being put in there that people are talking about, I'll drop that into the news to talk about on here. But not only that, like there's a whole bunch of other good stuff. Like anytime there's deals on board games or brushes, if you're a minis painter, or RPGs like the Bundle of Holdings, Beetle is a great guy that is always updating our Discord with a bunch of great deals and stuff. Like I believe there's like some Sable brushes right now that he dropped the link in there for like $49 or something like that. So yeah, if you're not checking out the Boards and Swords Discord, then you're missing out. And then Philip, why don't you tell people about the Patreon?
Patreon.com/boardsandswords, boardsandswords.com/Patreon. That's going to get you where you need to go. Both of those links, that's got access to the special channels in the Discord. It's got access to the bonus bits. That's where Chris and I we just shoot the shit for however long we feel like it, randomly, and we talk about all the randomness happening in the gaming world and in the world in general. And you get to hear our musings on certain thoughts. It's completely great. We've also got at the higher levels, we got dice we send out to you. Totally weighted dice. They always roll ones. Great to give to the people you can't stand. Chris is also going to dad joke your favorite games These jokes are so bad that they're good. All right, that's just how Chris rolls. And then the piece de résistance. Once we reach our goal, we will be live playing Love Mutants of Castle Heartache, Dungeon Crawl Classics from Goodman Games. It's going to be a fun time. I've read through some of the module, and yeah, it's going to be a really great time. But we got to get up to that level, and we need your help to do that. So
You know,
go to boardsandswords.com/Patreon
You keep joking about the weighted dice. Now I feel like I actually have to go get
and get
the,
weighted dice.
Like the next set of dice are going to actually be weighted. But I don't know.
But I feel like it needs to be obviously weighted.
Yeah.
Like they need to be pyramid. They almost need to look like
No, I just need to get it to where
four-sided
each
D4s
side
and
is a
chop the top
1.
off.
Each
Oh,
side
here we
is a
go.
1 except for the Boards and Swords logo.
That's a 6.
Exactly. And with that, we're gonna turn it back to Jason and talk about Monument Hobbies. So, I have just a question that people that have been painting for a while probably know the answer to this, and I'm starting to get there. But one of the things I feel like when you first get into painting, that like one of the big questions you have is, what is
The different colors have different flavors.
Well, there's that. I mean,
No,
we were taught that from elementary school with them smelly markers.
No, that set a very bad precedent. You don't sniff the marker. You don't lick the Crayolas. You don't eat paint. It's not about taste.
But like,
Marines are not going to be happy with this episode.
They've already got a lot of them angry at us. Pitchforks at the gate.
but the question I had is, what makes the difference between different brands of paint? Like, it's all just pigments and water if you're talking acrylics. But so when somebody's at a gaming store, they want to learn how to paint, and they see all different brands of different things, like, what makes a difference between those?
The easiest way that I tell people is that everything that we use in our craft is a tool, right? So whether you're building a house or painting a miniature, you've got a wider range of tools you can use, and so it really comes down to feel in a lot of cases. Now, when you start with the broader question of what makes liquid acrylics that we use for hobby activities different from, like, say, paste acrylics, artist acrylics, as they're commonly known, that's really where the fundamental alteration is that liquid acrylics are of a lower viscosity so that they don't fill in details. So they're more apt for painting three-dimensional surfaces than are paste acrylics. Paste acrylics are, a heavier viscosity, so they, by their very nature, if you were to just take a scoop and paint it on a miniature, you're going to fill in all the cracks and crevices with pigment. And when it dries, it actually is going to have some texture and some height to it, as we would say. And you would not be able to tell that was chainmail anymore, let's say, things like that. It's not like painting with mud, but it gets you closer to that than with a liquid. Now, once we're into liquid acrylics and we know we've got the right kind of paint for painting sculptures and army men, then it's really about feel. Is the honest to goodness answer. It's when you pick up your brush and you put paint on it and touch it to a model, what feels right to you, and that can change artist to artist. As somebody that's been painting miniatures for over 45 years, I have my way of thinking of how painting miniatures should go. But I might sit down with somebody who's been painting equally as long or only for a day or two, and their idea could be totally different. So then it's about making paints, and I think I would speak for just about every paint manufacturer, it's about making paints that cover as many bases for those people that are out there using your paints as possible.
Which I guess explains a lot, because the biggest way I see people or see you guys demoing your stuff and marketing or showing it to people, like at conventions specifically is what I'm talking about, is here, try it. It's not just like a rack of paints with like, here's what the different colors is. It's here's a brush, there's a mini, try it out, see what you think. That is a very interesting way of looking at it, because it does make you wonder, like, well, if it's just based on feel, then how do you market that and try and sell your paint over somebody else's?
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. When we were looking initially at coming up with a formula for a paint. The first paint we made was white, because white traditionally as a liquid acrylic sucks. And it is for all sorts of reasons, but the main one being is that a lot of people skimp on the pigment they use, and they don't use a true titanium white. And so when we first made paint, we were making titanium white, and we were making it out of very high quality titanium pigment and paint and mediums, and just mixing it at our house. But the idea was to get it to flow the way we wanted to and still have good coverage, so it was opaque and wouldn't get chalky. And if you're thinning it to glaze with it, it doesn't get streaky real quick and do all the horrible things that white paint tends to do. And so when we got that, and the pushback from the community was, you need to make more paint that acts this way. And it was like, oh gosh, well, every pigment acts differently. So, well, not every pigment, but there's large variations in how different pigments work. So you can't just, take the same amount of magenta as you do naphthol red and mix it into a medium and get, a color that's going to work right. So there's a lot of, tinkering that has to go into it. And, once we got it down, my goal was really make it as simple to use as a tool so that everybody could enjoy it no matter how they like to paint. So I know for Pro Acryl, that's where we're at. I can't speak for everybody on that end, but I would think that it has to be somewhat similar, although there are paints out there that are built for specific things like speed paints and, washes and certain effect paints and things. They're really just meant to handle one job. Our goal was to get the bulk of your paint set as colors, your color palette, let's say, to be the same paint you use for everything. Because I'm a lazy painter, and I'm also kind of a cheap bastard, right? I don't want to have to own 3 of the same color just because you have to use one in the airbrush, one on the brush, and one to supposedly paint faster. I just never bought into that. So I was like, hey, if you make a green I like, I want to be able to pick that bottle of green up and use it for everything I do in miniatures.
Right.
So that's the way we make all of our paints here.
So did it really just start with like everybody, like, I hate everybody's white, let me just make a better white?
Yeah, that's the legit like story behind how it started, is on stream. We've been live streaming painting for over 8 years now, and in doing that 5 days a week religiously, one day I was painting a model from Forge World that had a white cloak, and I was just losing my mind. When you're live and you don't have the ability to edit out the mistakes, you try not to make mistakes. And when the paint is the mistake, and I won't name the company's paint that I was using because it's not fair. It wasn't anything inherently bad with the paint. It's just liquid acrylic white.
Yeah.
Traditionally not a good thing. And so I was fighting it, and it was fighting me, and I was getting disgruntled, and I was like, screw this, I'm wiping it off. We wiped it off with airbrush cleaner and cleaned the cloak right down to gray plastic, and I primed it again, and I said, I'm going to show you how to make paint. And live on that stream, I made titanium white paint out of, I think on that stream I was using like Winsor & Newton pigment and some various mediums from, who knows, Liquitex, enter name here, just off the shelf stuff.
Yeah. Like stuff you would see if you went in the artist section at Michael's.
Yeah, it's just, anywhere you want to dick blick, whatever, right? It's just art stuff. And mixed it up, got the consistency I wanted, tested it out, and then put it in the airbrush and sprayed it, and it was bar none a perfect white, which I knew. I've done this many, many times. But chat rifled back and said, oh my God, if you could make that and sell it, we'd buy it instantaneously. And I said, well, I said, obviously I can't make a product that's just made out of all these off the shelf things and expect to sell it and make any money on it. It's not really smart. I said, but let me do some research. And I did. And we wound up being able to buy some of the stuff in bulk, and we're able to mix it up at the ratios that I was using. And then we just started selling it, calling it Special White. And we couldn't make enough. And it was just Jen, my partner, and I making it in our kitchen. And, we do it by, basically a pot full. Think about making, mom's spaghetti sauce. And we just made it. And we'd make like 50 to 100 bottles, depending on how much energy we had in a day. And they'd be sold before we could put them on the store. And it was literally just in bottles we got off of Amazon that were for putting your vape juice in, I think, or something like that. And they just had these child-proof green caps, and every now and then you'll see one floating around on the internet, somebody saying, I still have my original bottle of special white, and that's great. And we just at some point we were like, listen, we can't keep doing this because it's a lot of energy, and it wasn't, we back then we weren't doing that necessarily as a product manufacturer. We were just doing it because it was a great way to help the community, and when they saw me using it, like, hey, I want some, and so we did. We're making brushes by this point, and I think probably making our brush group and some of the other products that we did, like desktop organization for holding paints, paint racks, and then our original go bag that you could tote all of your paints around to go to the hobby store and stuff. But we weren't making paints except for that white. And then it just got to the point where it's like, okay, either we have to break everybody's hearts and stop making the white because it wasn't conducive to our sanity, or we have to learn how to make all the rest of the colors too. And so that's what we ultimately decided to do.
That's interesting because for me, it's like I didn't know of Monument Hobbies until the Pro Acryl. So it's interesting to find out that, like, oh, there was a whole community even before the paint.
Yeah, the company was called Slow Fuse Gaming at that point. My online name is Slow Fuse, and so our stream was Slow Fuse Gaming, dating back all the way to where I was on Justin TV streaming video games.
Oh, wow.
And so that just kind of, as we transitioned out of video games and into painting, the stream stayed the same because that's where the following and all the subscribers were. And a large part of our community stuck around us through all of that change, and that kind of gave us the basis to start what we were doing. But that name wasn't going to last for us forever, and we knew it. But there are still products. I probably have brushes sitting on my desk here that have so you'll never be able to see this on the stream probably, but these are the old Slow Fuse Gaming brushes. So, they were the same brushes that we make today, but they had the Slow Fuse Gaming, and they had a different naming convention to them. They were called the Bomb Wicks back then, and so we had det cords and artillery brushes and things like that. But yeah, it was Slow Fuse Gaming making brushes and bags. All the original bags had the SFG logo on them. And then as Steamforged Games was gaining traction with their thing, we were like, well, they started using SFG in their gear, and we were like, well, we already know this isn't the right name for us long term because we were making really, really striving to make quality products, but the name Slow Fuse Gaming didn't mean anything, and it made it sound a little cheaper than what we thought the value of the products was ultimately wanting to be, and so we knew we had to change it, and so eventually it just migrated into being Monument.
Nice. So I had a thought, and it just, I was listening in it, and it was gone. So I just, and Philip, this might be a little bit over your head because you've not done a ton of minis painting, but like we're not exaggerating when we say that most white paints are garbage. They're just, they dry real chalky, and it looks bad to where you have to do a whole bunch of like really thin coats just to even get it to
try to get it to work out.
And get it to work. And correct me, I know nothing about paint, so I could be 100% wrong here. But what I've heard is the biggest reason is that white pigment is just so much bigger than other pigments because it has to have all the colors, basically.
No, typically not. The differentiation between the pigments when you're using them for liquid acrylics is not going to be much at all. That's kind of that urban legend type stuff.
Gotcha.
A lot of the pigments that they will get, the synthetic pigments that they use as whites, may go through heavy bleaching processes, and so those processes to get them to be white as a base don't interact as well in what is called the suspension, right? And so they may not balance out correctly chemically, and so they cause some problems there. It may just be that there's not enough pigmentation. It's also mixed with things for opacifiers. There's any number of reasons depending on the pigment they start with. But yeah, honestly, it's just that they kind of cheapen the formula out.
Gotcha.
You have to spend time with white and other bright colors as well. It's not just white. It's anything that uses a lot of white in it. That will be, because if you think about it, if you go to like Home Depot or wherever whatever your big department or hardware store in your country is, where you go to get paint mixed, they're going to give you what's called a tint base to create your color from, and in most cases that's a white-ish paint.
Right.
And that's what eggshell, satin, gloss, whatever matte finish that you've made, they'll go grab a gallon, they stick it in the machine and it shoots CMYK, pigment into it in various levels based on the computer to give you your color. And so that white is your opacifier. And, when you're doing it with us, it's no different. When you're going to make certain colors, you're going to use white as a base and then add like yellow to it to get a real pale yellow or something like that. And so it can cause the same problem for a lot of brighter colors. And then we can get into the whole, it doesn't help that in our world, people overthin their paints a lot. They tend to, you listen to someone say, hey, I need to, be painting in very thin coats, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
When somebody tells you you're using your airbrush, you need to have it be like skim milk. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. What that means is that you need to do it a bunch and get to the part where you feel that it's right, and then repeat that as often as possible is what it means. I can't tell you what paint being like skim milk is like. I don't know how much water to tell you to add to the paint because it just depends.
Maybe that's more people eating their paint as they're drinking it there.
Drinking is technically, although this is not true, but I'm going to say it out loud anyway. Drinking is technically just eating, but with fewer teeth involved.
Yeah.
That's the way we say it to people, because everybody says, "Oh, but I can drink it though," and I'm like, "No." Of course, the nutritionist will call me out on that one because that's not true. When you remove saliva from the thing, it changes it entirely. But we're not going to go down that route. We're not sure about
He says only because he knows somebody has probably said it to him in like a Discord message or something. Yeah, that was the thing. It was I sat down, so it didn't help that at Nova Open everybody that entered into Capital Palette got a bottle of Pro Acryl in there. But I saw the booth and I tried it, and they're like, "Oh, what paint do you want to use?" And I heard somebody say something about the white, and I'm like, "Well, if your white's the best, I got to try the white." And then I was like, "Oh no, they weren't kidding. This is actually really good white."
Yeah. It was made for not only its coverage, but because, again, like, I'm a lazy painter, so the reality is that I don't want paint that I have to mess around with much. So the whole line was built to spend less time dickering around with your paint on the palette and mixing, and more time on the model.
Yep.
And it started with white, and everything follows that same principle.
That was like the second reason that I ended up picking up a couple of bottles, because it was like, oh, I don't have to thin this unless I want to for an effect. Great, because I've been having a ton of problems where they just happen to be like right up to that. I've been having a whole bunch of problems where I accidentally either under thin, or I don't thin it enough, or I thin it too much, and it's just like, this is a mess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a big educational process, right? Because again, it's not, if you go back to the tool thing, if you have used a particular type of saw your whole life, and you go out and you buy one that changes the way it works, that learning curve is there, but you might wind up with a better experience at the end of it. And Pro Acryl is one of those learning curves. It's not going to work like all of the other hobby paints that you may have used, starting with testers, and enamels into acrylics and Tamiya and Vallejo and everybody else. It's not going to work the same. It's going to reduce the amount of steps you have to do, and that's one of the biggest educational hurdles we're always up against is showing people that, hey, you don't have to do that anymore. Put your brush, clean your brush, leave it a little damp, put it in the paint, and paint with it. And people are always like, no, you can't do that. It gives bad problems. I'm like, no, try it and see. Because I'm more adventurous, I guess. Not that you can really be adventurous with paint, right? You just put paint on a model. It's not like it's curing heart disease or anything. But I just don't care. I just put the paint on the model and I see, and I can tell very quickly what it's doing and adjust as I need to. And so that kind of, as we develop the paints and we go through our approval process per color around here, it's really based around that. It's like, can I just kind of forget, can I go around, can I kind of disappear into an audio book and have the paint work? Or do I have to focus all of my time on the paint? Because if I have to focus all of my time on the paint to make sure I'm doing it right, then it's not the right paint for us. It needs to be the paint that I can have my audiobook or my headphones in and be listening to my favorite song, and I just pull the color I want, put it on the palette, and start painting with it. It kind of needs to be subconsciously painting, and to really tick all my boxes.
So one of the things that also, when I started looking into the Monument Hobbies paint, and then I noticed not only do you have like your standard boxes that's got, like, here's your base colors, here's metallic colors, but I'm gonna flip it up here. You've also got these signature series where it looks like you've partnered with a bunch of different miniature painters. How did this become a thing?
Wow, that's a great question. Because we were content creators first, right? We were painting on stream before we ever made paint, and so it's always been kind of near and dear, like you guys with the podcast and the VODs, is that I believe that in our industry, this is really where the love is, if that makes sense, right? It's like I love watching content creators. I love discussing. I like talking over dinner. I like sitting on podcasts like this. Because we don't have we have a really, really niche within a niche within a niche industry. We don't have, a big industry magazine. We don't have things that, companies and people can get and use as resources other than the content creators themselves. And so we went out to some of the people we know, like Vince and Ninjon and Ben Comets and Matt Seshwish are the four that we have right now. And they're friends of not only us as painters, but had been friends of the brand. They had been using the colors, even without ever, in some cases without knowing who I was or who we were in general, just hearing about the paint, or one of their viewers would send them the paint, and then they'd start using it and, fall in love with it and start using certain colors on their own or the whole line on their own. And that really meant a lot to me, because that would drive people back to our brand without us really even knowing what was going on. I can remember, I learned about John from Scott Miniac's channel, because I think John's first video was done on Miniac's channel. And so as that was all happening, I was like, John's got a great personality. They're doing some wild and crazy stuff. They're bringing more of that social media production into painting content that was pretty dry at the time. And so I was turned on by that. I was like, that's really cool. And then, he was doing a video where he talked about our paints, and all of a sudden we were just like, one day we just kind of woke up and it's like, why are we out of this color? And it really struck a chord with us, because we knew, because that's how we sold our stuff. We relied on our stream as our major source of marketing, talking about our products, showing the products live, answering questions and feedback from the community live and all that. And so it really fit with how we were built at the core anyway. So we just reached out and we said, hey, I got this crazy idea. Would you like to make some colors with me? Would you like to take the colors that you use most when you're painting as kind of your foundation colors, I'll call it? Like if you have a shade color that you use a lot. For me, it would be dark purple would be one of the signature colors, because I shade just about every model other than things I paint purple with dark purple. And so I told them that kind of stuff, and both Vince and John were like, hell yeah, let's do it. And
I
so
was gonna ask how the colors get picked, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it was as simple for me as I was like, listen, here I gave them the list of what was in the hopper for us. Like, here are the next, I forget what it was, maybe it was 24 colors that we had that we were playing that were on my whiteboard here in the office. And I said, here are the colors. So those are on the table for you. If any of those make sense and they're ones that you use anyway that we already have in development, you can pick those, or we can talk about new colors. And I want to say, I don't know that the number's correct, but I think it was like half and half, probably like maybe 60-40. 60% they created new colors, and 30 or 40% were colors that I had that were colors they would have picked, but we were already working on. But yeah, I just said, hey, what do you use a lot that you find yourself mixing? Because no company makes the particular color exactly the way you want it, or that you have troubles with. Like I had trouble with white. What if it's a color you really love, but sometimes they every time a company makes it, it's a different hue. It shifts shade and tint a little bit. It never is the same. You get one bottle that's perfect, you go by the next one, it's too dark, but it says the same thing, same SKU. That happens a lot. So I said, so basically the door's open. You tell me what you want. And so with John and Vince, we became quick friends and dealing through the process and discussing it all and why they use the colors the way they did, so that I could get an understanding of why that color was important. And then I would start, we'd start mixing it our end and start using it that way. And, a lot of the colors were colors I wouldn't think of. But I was like, yeah, this color is now something I use all the damn time.
Awesome. Well, one of the other things that I had noticed recently when I was prepping for this stream is you've got a new product out called Newsh. So why don't you tell us about that?
Just Newsh it. So Yeah, Newsh. It's a funny one, right? Because we don't use silly names very often. Like all of our paints are called exciting things like blue and green. And it's kind of our namesake, no pun intended, is that we just want to have you be able to know what you're getting when you pick it up. Newsh was an odd one because we've really created something brand new. It's not something that exists in the marketplace, and so we didn't have a precedent. So when I guess I'll start with what it is. It's a alternative to oil and enamel washes. That's a full water-based acrylic product. So it has a very long open time, which means it takes a long time to dry and to cure. And during its open time, it's still workable. So not just open in the sense that if you put water back over the top of it, it moves again, but in the sense that I can literally douse. If you look on the website, I think you got it pulled up with the dreadnought that's on there. I took that initial dreadnought and just slathered it. The current video that we have on YouTube is me doing this project right here. But I got it up to where it was at a really good, tabletop level anyway. And then I just it's like dunking it in a tank of Newsh. I mixed some black brown of our opaque paint in with the Newsh, and I just painted sections of it and wiped it off with a makeup sponge like you would with an oil wash. And it gives you the pretty damn near the same effect without smelly toxic solvents to clean it up. It actually cures. You can be safe putting other acrylics over the top of it. It won't cause texture or cracking or orange peeling because it cures like a regular acrylic. You can paint right over the top of it without having to wait. You don't have to varnish. You don't have to do anything. So my hope when we were going down this line of train of thought was that we could again help painters that have maybe not been painting models as long, but see something really cool. Because in the age of information that we're in, you can go across the internet and you can find a model that looks spectacular, and you're like, oh my God, I want to paint like that. Grimdark being one of the biggest things. These, filthy weathered models that look like they've been to hell and back. Well, how do you make that happen? Well, it's a easy thing if you have the experience to work with these other products.
Right.
And now you're having to tell somebody that might be, who knows, a 14 getting into Space Marines for the first time, or 30 something and learning how to paint. Doesn't matter. But now you have to go from water-based acrylics that are all nice and easy to clean up and non-toxic and all that to now, hey, turpentine, so, keep this flammable can next to your desk and let's go for it. Which inherently isn't bad, but it takes some experience to know how to work with those types of tools inside painting. You can't just, you can't put, mineral spirits on a brush and oil paints on a brush and then just briefly clean it and then go back to your acrylics. And so when you're mixing media like we do in the hobby a lot, there's a lot of, hey, you got to blockade those things off. You don't want to intermix. They'll cause real problems with the way your paint adheres. And I say real problems. They're not real problems. They're just frustrations. But anyway, we just like to make stuff simple. And so we came out with Newsh, and sitting around the table saying, oh, God, what do we call this? You should have seen. It was like every name was so boring because it was like, on the bottle it says acrylic weathering medium. It was like subtractive weathering medium, acrylic weathering medium. It's the weathering medium. And I'm like, oh my God, shoot me now. And I was like, then somebody came up with Newsh. I forget who it was. And it was like, oh my God, yes, Newsh. It's a new form of wash. And so we were like, that works. We'll just call it Newsh. Everybody be damned. And so
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, I will say I have experimented a tiny bit with oil, because I was trying to do oil painting where you thin it down to do washes in like the recesses to kind of do outlines. And yeah, getting that right mixture of I couldn't get the right between the pigment or the paint, the oil paint and the turpentine. Not to mention, you crack that open and you're just not only like you're half high already, and then the entire area you're painting smells like turpentine now.
Yeah, even odorless mineral spirits are rough. So
yeah,
it's just a different world.
And I just couldn't get I couldn't get the consistency. It was either it was too thick or too thin. Yeah. So could I use could I use that? I know it says weathering medium, but could I use it in that kind of regard to do it almost?
You can thin it down with water. It will never flow the same way that an oil will, because oil has the benefit of having linseed oil as its base, or whatever oil they use as its base. So when you mix it with the mineral spirits or the turpentine, it has a totally different capillary action. It kind of looks like it's being sucked through a straw on those panel lines. Newsh won't do that because it is still a water-based product, so it is still going to have more surface tension. Even when you thin it down, you can put flow improver in it. It is just a medium like any other, so you can mix it and go crazy with the sciencing behind it. So a little bit of flow improver, and then pigment in it, and a little bit of water to thin it down and get it to be more liquidy. It'll work very close to that. But the nice thing is it would also work to just put it on your brush, paint the line, and then wipe it off.
Yeah, that is true.
And so you'll get the nice lining, depending. But of course, then you have to make sure that your line is deep enough to not also wipe off as you do it. So.
That's very true. I didn't think about that. That's interesting. All right.
But you can see, like on the Dreadnought leg, the front of the Dreadnought that I did, the panel lining was just a natural thing that happened there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that just happens when you slop it on and wipe it off. It leaves it in the recesses, so it gives you really nice. Now the way that I applied it there was also looking to get a very dirty filter over the top, so that it changed the color of the model to this, dipped in mud look. That is more attributed to like the 40K, grimdark universe type stuff, but you can make that as clean looking as you want and use it to just shade panel lines easily.
Now, is this gone? I know, like right now, it's out of stock, and but has this gotten into the hands of people yet? Or
yeah, it's the fastest selling product we've ever released. Actually, it sold out in 2 days. Thought, for sure, because of the education we knew was going to be behind it, people are going to have to see us teach them how to use it. Here's how you mix it. Here's how you do it. It's just a medium. It has no color, right? You got to put paint in it. And all of our other mediums that we do, other than maybe gloss varnish, people know what that does. But like our glaze and wash medium, our transparent paints, our metallic medium, things like that always take a little bit more education time. So when we did it, we were more focused because we released our fluorescent paints the same time. So we were more focused on making more fluorescent than Newsh, because we're like, yeah, Newsh, it'll be great. People will love it that are expecting it, but everybody else, it'll take some time for them to get used to the idea of it, and we'll train them. And we didn't really expect it to have a big launch. And then Newsh sold out in 2 days, and we had to make more and put it back in stock. And the fluorescents did great for a product launch, but they weren't even a concern. Like our concern to Newsh, like the few bits that we've been doing on the stream over the past 6 months where we'd taken it, we'll typically take new products and ideas and do them live on stream, even when they're not fully baked. So I had used the precursor of Newsh on stream, gosh, probably 6 or 8 months ago, to kind of mixed feedback. It wasn't quite the way. It didn't quite give the feel that I thought was right. Chat thought the same kind of thing as I saw it. And so we went not back to the full drawing board, but we retooled it a little bit, and then we kept showing them iterations of the product until we thought we nailed it, so that we had all of our community members that were on board. But we thought, oh yeah, we made plenty. We did not make plenty. Hopefully, we'll see it back in stock next week.
Nice. But has it gotten out to the point where have you started seeing people using it in ways like in new creative ways that maybe you hadn't planned? Because I imagine that's got to be one of the coolest things. It's like, how is somebody else going to experiment with this?
Yeah, it's been really fun, because it came out with the fluorescence. One of the first things we started seeing was people mixing it with bright colors, which not that it never crossed my mind. People had asked the question, and I said, sure, you can do it. I don't know how. I would have to really think about the use case where you'd want to put it on, and because as a subtractive weathering medium, what that really means, if you're familiar with the terminology for oils and enamel washes, you put them on and then you take them off, or you rub them to create streaking and stuff, but you're removing material. You're putting more material on the model generally than you really want to use, and you're taking a bunch of that off, or thinning it live on the model with the mineral spirits. And so we call that subtractive weathering, because it's not additive like we would normally do, where we stipple color on, and every dot of paint you put on is something that stays on the model. Here you're putting on way more than you want, taking it off, and what's left gives you the effect. And so I couldn't think in my head why you would do that with bright colors, but then people started showing me like lava effects.
Oh.
Yeah, like doing lava bases. They just took like yellow and orange fluorescent paint, mixed it in, slopped the whole over the base, and then wiped it off, and all the bright stuff stayed in the middle parts. And start thinking about, then of course, like glowy bits between armor become a thing, and really weird OSL effects become a thing. So yeah, it's like all of our products, we really intend for you to go out and get creative and play with them, discover things we would never even thought about internally, because there's no reason not to. You just do it, and so, or just Newsh it, like we say on this one, which spacing is important, which is also a thing. But if you go through and play with it, you'll find tons and tons of stuff. We have people coming back saying they've already realized that it makes their wet blend tons better because of its long open time. If they use just a little bit with their color, they can now wet blend like a pro, because it will turn acrylics into feeling like oils. And all of a sudden, you now have the ability to do with acrylic paints things you've never been able to do before. And drying retarders are a thing. You can get what's called a drying retarder, put it into your acrylic paint, and it makes it open a lot longer. But it also has a weird feel. It turns your paint into kind of feels like snot, you know?
Okay.
And so as you're blending on the model, it doesn't lay as flat. It doesn't feel like it's going to lay as flat, so it's a little awkward. And it can also break the paint if you use too much. And Newsh takes all that away. You can just use it as a drying retarder for blending and all sorts of effects.
So what's next in the pipeline for Monument Hobbies?
Oh, geez. Wow.
We talked about you mentioned the fluorescence.
Yep, the fluorescence came out the same time on Black Friday, or Bright Friday we called it. So we had 6 fluorescents come out in a set. Before anybody asked, we didn't do blue because blue doesn't fluoresce the same as all the other colors. So our current blues are already brighter than a fluorescent blue. So we didn't make that. We chose to make, I think in place of blue we did purple. But yeah, so we've got those. Those have been a big hit. People love them. They're great for OSL effects, and that's really the big case there. But yeah, we have 2 more signature sets coming at Adepticon timeframe this next year. We've got a 3rd set that is kind of a special deal that's mum's the word right now. That's a pseudo signature set. It's not with an individual, but it's a fun collab that we're doing. So that'll be 18 new colors to the regular line.
Oh, wow.
That I think people are going to absolutely mind blown with some of those that are coming. We've got some additions to our Go Bag line. So we make the Go Bag Evo, which is our big paint case. We've got a half size, a smaller one that is more reminiscent of the original Go Bag, that holds 48 paints and big storage area in the back, and then a piggyback case that goes on it that holds miniatures. So you can have a case that'll hold your miniatures that'll Velcro to either the small or the big bag. So yeah, there's the Evo. So that's our big signature case right now. That's one of the biggest products we've ever made. It's also the most expensive product we ever made. We were like, I'm not sure people are gonna want to do this. We're always really looking at the value quotient for all of our products, and this one was a tough one. It's like, good God, in order to make the bag we want to make, it's going to be expensive, and people have really backed it, so we're very proud of that. But yeah, we have a half size that'll be like literally like cut that thing in half, and it'll be half of it, and then another bag that holds miniatures, a water bottle holder that goes on the side of it, and all sorts of accessories coming out for that too.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely saw some people rocking that at Nova as well.
Yeah,
because it's a whole paint studio basically. Definitely.
Yeah, again, I like the idea that you can paint. You can just basically load up and go, and when you get to where you're painting out in the wild, it's always very uncomfortable because you never feel like you have all your stuff. But if you can take this, then it feels just like the way you're painting at home. A lot of people use it at home. So they'll have this on their desk because they can pack it up and stick it in a closet or underneath the table in their paint station when they don't have a dedicated area. It doesn't have to be in the way of the family or, your office when you're not using it. So you can just pack it up, and then when you do it, like 2 minutes to open it up, fold out the wings, take the lights out and turn them on, and you're painting. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, because that's definitely the way I paint. Actually, is I end up painting more at our local store than I do here at home, or if I do, it's like in the living room more than so like on the go kind of painting. So I saw that and I was like, yeah, that would be definitely an upgrade from the 2 bins that I just have. One has the minis and one has just the different paint
we've
bottles.
all done that, right? Shoe boxes and plastic bins, and then you get there and you got to take it all out, and then you got to put the bins someplace. I love the idea. I mean, this whole thing was what we initially intended the Go Bag to be. We didn't have the ability as a company to afford it. Stuff like this costs a lot to tool, and starting from scratch with all the molding and everything is more expensive than just making a bag. So initially we just made a bag, with this being the intent to get to have a portable workstation the whole time.
Well, awesome. Well, to finish out the show, I actually made a game show for us, and Philip, I have hope in this one. This one I was sitting around thinking of what to do here, and I came up with a new game show. It's called the Redditor Feud.
Okay.
And so everybody loves Family Feud, right? But
Yes.
the problem with Family Feud is you have to have that base of people that can answer the questions.
You got to have your 100 people.
You got to have your 100 people, right?
Survey says.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have the survey, so you can't just like make one up. Like I got to have get in the community to get. Okay, there we go. It was not showing up at first, and now it's gone. Hold on one second. So what I did was like, well, I'll just go to Reddit and look up the question there, or like find a question, and then it won't be 100, but I'll go off of upvotes, and sort by top, and that'll be my base. And specifically, we're talking about paints.
Right.
So I was like, let's just go basic. That way, it's not like, the first ideas I have is like, oh, is this a color or is it a AI color? Like we've done before, or that kind of thing. But it's a very generic. I found a thread. It was, and also I found this really cool PowerPoint slideshow. So I have to credit. I think it's Slide Chef or whatever is I think where I got. But so what I have here is top 8 answers on the board. We're gonna alternate until somebody gets 3 strikes. So not exactly like Family Feud. We're switch it up here just to make it more fun. Philip, keep score of who gets the most points based on the upvotes.
Gotcha.
So, in what we have here, just your favorite color. What is your favorite color? It was from like a year ago. Top 8 answers are on the board, and we're gonna let Jason start since he's the guest here. So.
Okay.
Favorite colors, green.
All right. So, I gotta pull up the list here so I know what the colors are here. All right. Green is. Survey says. Green is number 3. Philip, have you got your dings on there? Because I think
225.
225 upvotes was green, and it was the number 3 popular answer.
All right.
So
I got more points than I thought I would, so I'm a winner.
Yeah,
That's great.
So Philip, over to you now. What have you got?
Red.
Red. All right. Survey says red was not on the board, which I found weird. But
Rigged. This game is rigged.
Hold on. What? I will caveat this could be an issue with just the way I did it, in that the person that asked the question said that their favorite color was red, and nobody else commented on it. So I don't know if that was because they had mentioned it in the caption, but whatever. So back over to Jason.
Oh boy, I got you now.
Red wasn't even in the top 10 upvoted comments.
Oh, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Blue.
Survey says blue was the number 1 answer with 388.
That's it. I can pretend I know what I'm talking about.
Well, I would hope so.
Coming at you.
All right, Philip, back over to you.
Well, he said it kept selling out, so I'm gonna go with white.
White is white a color? No, white was not anyone's favorite color.
Absolutely joking. This is horrible.
Oh, no. Wait a minute. He's sandbagging. He's rope-a-doping me. He's gonna come back with the heat here in a second. Oh,
all right.
Got top. It's tough.
All right, Jason. What have you? Back over to you.
I'm gonna say. I mean, let's keep it going. Let's go with yellow.
Yellow. All right. Survey says number 6 was yellow with 186 upvotes.
I'll take it.
All right, Philip. You gotta get on the board here.
Gotta have something. Jeez. I mean, all right. Let's let's run through the day. Let's go with orange.
Orange.
Just run through the damn rainbow.
Orange.
I feel like I need to be sitting back going, good answer. Orange, good answer.
Yeah, good answer. All right.
Orange is on the board. Philip is on the board
right.
with 1 more vote than yellow. Literally 1 more.
Want to go with 187, Bob?
187. All right, back over to Jason.
I'm gonna say purple.
Purple. Ooh, Jason, that is that's your
That's my
first.
first X.
This first, it won't let me do just the one, but it was your first. That's your first X. Purple was
Okay.
I think it was the 9 or 10. I can't remember which one, but it was just
Alright.
outside.
All right.
So Philip, back over to you. This is your chance to come
Okay.
back.
I know I'm going off the rainbow here. We already said that. We got
You
that
got your
right
you
there.
got your Roy G. Biv going.
Yeah, man.
He's got his color wheel. Cheater.
It's actually the lantern cores.
Let's go with black.
Black.
Good
Oh, I'm sorry, Philip. That's it won't let me click there. Black is black a color or is it just the absence of color? I can't click
Well,
X's.
see, okay, so it depends, right? Do we want to get scientific? 'Cause in light, black is the absence of color, and
That's
white
right.
is all colors.
So yeah, that's three strikes there. So I think that's gonna end our game show there. I think it's pretty obvious who won, but so I'll start off at the bottom here with number 8 was brown with 124. So you were on
Beat purple.
brown beat purple. Yes, surprisingly.
In what
Just-
world does brown beat purple?
Just
people?
wait till you see what number 2 was, because it surprised me.
No.
That sounded like a
True.
BuzzFeed article, but number 7, Philip, you would have been there if you had kept going. Was indigo.
Indigo. Damn it, indigo.
Your eye there. Number 4. I hesitated on whether to do this, but it got so many votes. It was dark green. It was a completely
I mean,
separate
that's fair.
entry with 190 upvotes, but dark green coming in just under green.
That's fair. It's a little
All right.
subjective, but it's fair.
All right, Vanilla Ice interview.
And then, shocking me and probably everyone else on here, number 2 on the board, although I guess if you now look at it, it makes a little bit of sense, was pink at 232 votes. I mean, I guess from a gender point of view of blue and pink being the top 2 colors,
I mean, Amy Jo Johnson, Pink Ranger.
that's
she's,
totally what it is.
100%.
Yeah, I
That's
can
how I'm
see
going
it.
with that.
Pink.
So there you go. So congrats to. Oh, that's wrong.
Yeah, what are you hitting? Yeah. Oh,
That was
jeez.
for you, Philip. That's
That
what
was for me. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So congrats to Jason for winning our first Redditor feud there.
Yes, I will wear that as a crown of honor.
All right.
I like that. We got to keep that going. That was a great.
That's a really good. That's a neat idea.
Yeah, we're gonna find new topics for that.
That was a
Great.
first. That's a Chris Renshaw original there, sort of. But I think it's time to. That brings us down.
That's
to the
been
end of
our
the
show. We want to thank you guys for listening in the chat. We want to thank our guest Jason Craze from Monument Hobbies. Thanks for putting up with our random shenanigans and Chris's horrible jokes.
Yep. Where can people find everything relating to you and Monument Hobbies?
MonumentHobbies.com is the biggest place. We're on Twitch at as Monument_Hobbies. So pretty much Monument Hobbies everywhere. So yeah, but the Twitch show and the shop will get you to everywhere else you need to be for sure.
All right. We love feedback. Make sure you send it to us, feedback@boardsandswords.com. Let us know what you want us to see on the show next. Who do we need to be talking to? Who do we need to subject to my horrible jokes? But in the meantime, make sure you go check out boardsandswords.com, like Philip said, and catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/boardsandswordspod. And also support the Patreon where you can get good stuff and help us get to that live play. It's going to be great. But in the meantime, we'll be back not in 2 weeks because that is Christmas. So we're working on scheduling a makeup show because I was out sick, didn't have a voice, and we had a guest. And so I'm working on rescheduling. It might be next week. Still working on it, but stay tuned. boardsandSwords.com/live. I'll update the calendar there once we get it scheduled. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys there. and every gamer has a story, and yours should be not to eat paint.
Don't eat the paint.
Good night, everybody.
Yay!
Nope. Apparently there's a drop off there. It goes from like low to like off. All right, I'm going to stop the stream.